Everyone, welcome to our media call with Bev Priestman, head coach of Canada Soccer Women's National Team.
Thank you, Vanessa. Hi, Bev. Can you just kind of walk us through a little bit some of the, the decision-making process? What sort of went into making some of the big decisions, and just in your roster selection?
Yeah, I think I had to, probably the main thing for me is not to get caught up in the past or the future and what players can or could be. I think I needed to use my time in the role in the way that I want to play, and assess who's performing now, because ultimately we're going to an Olympics that's happening in less than a month from now, and I wanted to pick players on form. But to do that, I had to, trawl through footage, statistics, and, try and get the right blend of experience, legs to get us through a tournament, some youth as well. So just trying to get that blend right. But ultimately what it came down to for me is that gut feel of, who I think can go and change the colour of the medal. And that's the team that I got to. But, as you can tell, it definitely wasn't easy, which is a credit to all the players.
Thank you. Next, Signe.
Hi, Bev. I'd like to ask you about one of those tough decisions. I know you just mentioned this on the broadcast earlier today, but to have that conversation with Sophie Schmidt, I just wonder how that went and how she took the news.
Yeah, it was, I said this before, probably the most difficult call of my career. It was brave, which is what I'm asking my players to do. Yeah, really difficult, massive respect for Sophie in how she's handled it, very keen to take on that alternate role, which, by the way, is not an easy role to take on, particularly when you're a player of Sophie's caliber. So, Sophie's absolutely devastated, as you can imagine, but surprisingly very sort of focused in knowing that this team want to go and change the colour of the medal, and, ready and willing to do that. But, really difficult conversation. But, I had to do what I felt was right for the team. And unfortunately for Sophie, I think there's a group of players who play in Sophie's position, if you talk about blending midfield and the type of midfielder, and that's ultimately what it boiled down to, which is unfortunate for Sophie. But I think she'll bring a massive, as we all know, amount of experience, character, and any alternate that's named has to be trusted to go on the pitch, and absolutely trust Sophie to do that. So will be pivotal in the group's success.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Sandra Crusina.
Thanks, Vanessa. Hey, Bev, thanks for your time today. Just wondering if you can expand a little bit on the question that Signe asked. In terms of alternates, what are you expecting from them? And I know we've seen in the past with Canada, alternates have been needed. I mean, you think back to 2012. So what's your underlying message to everybody on that list?
Yeah, I think the big thing for me, there was some key elements to that alternate list. I think I've picked a team that I think their average age by the end of the tournament will be 27, which, is a great average age to go into a major tournament. But two of those alternates bring a massive amount of experience. They'll lift and support a group of players where it's their first Olympic Games. So that was critical. I think I have to be able to trust whoever is in that alternate group to go on the pitch and perform and help us change the colour of the medal. So I couldn't just pick for other reasons. So experience, I think being able to trust them on a pitch and to lift standards in training, all of those players will do that. And then the probably the most critical piece for me was character. This group, it's a really difficult job being an alternate. The good news is the group are all with us the whole time, train, stay with the group, so an integral part. But ultimately, you might not, and you have to accept that role, knowing you might never step on the pitch. So they have to be able to deal with that. And, right now it's very raw for them, but, it was an offer to accept that position, and all four have accepted that. So I think they were critical pieces in that, and I have no doubt that the four players listed will be exceptional at that particular role.
Thanks, Bev.
Thank you. Next, Derek Van Diest, Postmedia.
Hi, Bev. Thanks for taking the time out again. Good to see you. I just want to ask you about Jordan and just that decision to keep her off the main roster and make her an alternate. I know this team has had issues scoring, and I'm just wondering how you came to the decision of what strikers or what forwards to take onto the roster as opposed to other ones when this team has had difficulty scoring.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, if I use Evelyn Viennes in the 9, Evelyn, put her best foot forward, has scored for us, looks dangerous. I think for Jordan, it was personally a difficult decision for me, right? All the way through youth, taking Jordan to World Cups early, etc. But as I said, principally, I have to pick on performance and who's in form and who's performed well under my time. And unfortunately, I felt that, the other forwards right now, if I look at the statistics, 1v1s, crosses, all those sorts of things, and it's not the only thing, statistics, that drive it. I think I picked the most dangerous forwards as of right now, but I've got absolutely no doubt in my mind that in the future, Jordan Heightman can be an unbelievable player. I think playing against Jordan is probably game time, limited game times happen, confidence dips, all of those sorts of things with young players. And so I just had to pick for the now to go to a tournament, tomorrow and perform. And that was a really difficult call for me to make because I know it would have meant does mean the world to Jordan. But I picked who I felt was the most ready now.
Thank you. Next, Har.
Thanks, Vanessa. Good morning, Bev. Thank you very much for doing this with us. I was wondering if you could kind of take us through the process in terms of the goalkeepers that you named to the roster and Erin as an alternate with so much depth that Canada has in that position. How did you come to your decision? And can you take us through that with the net there? Thank you.
Yeah, that is a great point. I think, firstly, the depth in the goalkeeper position. There's Riley Foster. There's a whole raft of goalkeepers that I think Canada's X factor. We have massive depth there. For me, it was really close in that alternate spot. I think both Sabrina and Erin have unbelievable character. Like, that's when you talk about requirements to be an alternate, both of those players tick those boxes. I felt with the roster that I've selected, Erin's experience and just watching Erin lift young players, not just her sort of veteran group, that was critical, stood out to me a lot. And then the other thing is just Erin's performances. I felt that Erin, particularly in the England camp and then recently in Spain, although she didn't get on the pitch because, I'm still sort of looking at the other goalkeepers who are in the 18-player roster. Erin, for me, her performances have gone up and she's put her best foot forward from probably what was a tough comeback from major injury. So I think readiness to step on the pitch, thought Erin just edged it performance-wise, but I think her experience, her character, she's only going to lift the group.
Thank you. Next, Moses will do.
Thanks, Vanessa. And thank you, Bev, for doing this. This is Moses Wolde with Global News. I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts. A third of your roster is young. The importance of making their debuts at a major tournament going to the Olympics. Just your thought on the importance of having that nice blend where you still have your veterans that make up most of the roster, but also bringing in and ushering in that new group to make sure that Canada stays viable and competitive through the years, through your tenure, as well as past that as well.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of factors here. I was sort of average number of caps in the groups around 75, and we know that the teams that go all the way, it's like 70 plus caps as an average. And although the team, doesn't have a major amount of age, we have a great blend of young, old, sort of middle group. I would say a lot of this group have major experiences and a lot of caps. There's some new faces, and when I came in, I really wanted to make the group hungry. There was a comfort level I felt, and I think that comfort level shifted. And I think when people are uncomfortable, you see things from them that maybe you wouldn't have seen if there's a comfort level. So yes, I think that blend's really important, but actually there's a group of like 23 to 26-year-olds who you'd say in a lot of countries, they're young, but actually, credit to John Herdman, to Kenneth for Blood, and young players early in our youth system and all the way through, we actually have an experienced young group as well. So I think that sort of freshness, new, that blend of experience in that middle age group, and then the veterans who will bring a calmness to, you know, those major tournaments that they've experienced. So you're right, that blend is really critical.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Janover.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. Greetings from the West Coast, Bev. Sounds like because you've had such difficult decisions, maybe that bodes well for the roster that you compiled. I'm curious with the pandemic, are you as prepared as a squad? Because I know you mentioned you had to look at a lot of video and whatnot. Do you feel that you're as prepared as you'd like to be heading to the Olympics? I know you've done a great job arranging the friendlies, but how would you describe the preparation for the squad heading into the Olympics a month away?
Yeah, I think like Canada Soccer have done a great job of supporting myself, the team, in getting us every preparation we need. I think if you're asking me, do I feel the most prepared I could? I would have liked 4 years going into this event. I think it's been a bit of a sprint as a head coach, even when it comes to making roster decisions. You know, I've had players who haven't been available, injuries, you know, all of those sort of factors, but a lot of other coaches have had that too. So I think I'm really excited to, you know, touch down in LA in the preparation camp where you've got a smaller squad. You can really start to hone in on partnerships and some of the little details that make some of the best players better. I've felt it's been a little bit of a rehearsal to, or sort of not a trial, but at times, particularly the last camp, it felt like that. You're just seeing players. I think now we have to shift gears a little bit around performance and pushing every player now to get the best out of them, ready to peak for an Olympics. So to answer your question, I think the best prepared I can be. But would I have liked longer to have been with a group? Of course.
Thanks, Bev. Best of luck.
Thank you. Next, Lucas.
Thanks so much, Bev. Lucas Weiss from Complex Canada. Bev, I mean, so many of the Canadian athletes that are going to be going to Tokyo have obviously experienced challenges over the past year due to the global pandemic. I'm just curious from your perspective, if you could speak on the resilience that members of your team have displayed as they prepare for an Olympics unlike any other.
Yeah, and you know what, credit to the group. I think we've had now 3 camps where we've experienced different protocols, you know, all for the sake of the team and the health of the team. We've got really strict protocols from Canada Soccer that, you know, left us with 0 COVID positive results, which, you know, credit to those who've put the work in to get us to that point. I think the group have just adapted, which I do believe that it'll be the most adaptable team in Tokyo that can survive. You know, it will feel very different, very, very different to a group we've been before. It won't feel as free, but I think we've operated in them circumstances. And I think that's the positive part of it. Can't be an excuse. I think, you know, we have to keep our players safe, have to keep the game safe, because people have worked so hard to get there. But I've seen a really adaptable team who've gone through adversity, whether that be seasons cancelled, not being together for a year, whatever that might be, you know, even crossing a border and getting exemptions. All of these things is difficult and new territory for everyone. And I think the group are well adapted and used to those sort of circumstances.
Thanks, Bev. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Signa, would you have any follow-up questions?
Yes, please. There's going to be some pressure on your team, Bev, back-to-back bronze medalists. And I know you said a few times on this call about changing the color of the medal, but how are you guys managing the expectations within the team in terms of, you know, conversations with sports psychiatrists, or what have you guys been doing to sort of handle that pressure?
Yeah, I think we've more focused on, it sounds really simple, but focused on the process. You've heard me talk about in the past around behaviors and sort of focusing on that rather than maybe the outcome, or, you know, we do focus on tactics, don't get me wrong, but those behaviors within a system when things don't go well, and, you know, I'm asking players to pass forward more than they pass backwards or sideways. When games go through lulls or pressure moments come, I'm asking them to be brave and to do those things I've asked. And by the way, go and express yourself. And, you know, if we lose the ball doing what I'm asking you to do, just win it back quicker than the opposition can use it. And so I think focused more on the process is the critical part. And I think, you know, we've that experience in the group, they've had this pressure, they've had a home World Cup, right, where I was involved in that, and there's a massive amount of pressure there. So I think you've got experience in the group who can help that. You've got players with no scars, right? You haven't got players who were involved in, let's say, 2019, etc. So you've got a good blend of fresh eyes, fresh blood, experience who've experienced pressure, scrutiny, adversity. But my job, the staff's job, and we do have a great staff like Robin Gale, previous player, Melissa Tancredi on the staff. Those sorts of people only help in those moments. We've got a psychologist that the players tap into. So we've put everything we can around the group. But we can't also hide away from the pressure. Pressure's there. But I think our job now is to take away sort of all the clutter and just home in on how do we get the best out of individuals? What's their identity? How can they bring it in the big moments? And they have to believe. I think the big thing for me is I wanted to bring a belief to the group that I felt had wavered. And we've seen parts of that along the way. Now it's about pushing and pushing and pushing over the next 3 weeks to really home in on that.
Thank you, and good luck on the road to Tokyo.
Thank you. And finally, John Molinaro.
Thanks, Vanessa. Bev, can you just sort of walk us through, you know, where the team goes from here? Like, I assume that there's going to be some sort of training camp. Can you sort of give us details as to where and when that will be? And is the plan still to have some sort of, you know, friendly match in Japan before the start of the tournament?
Yeah, so we actually on Monday leave for LA. We've got a sort of 9-10 day training camp in LA where we'll just be sort of focusing on us and putting some real work in around tournament strategies. Then we're off to Japan where we'll have a behind closed door friendly match with a top nation. And then we're into Sapporo for our sort of 5-day lead into the opening game. So what I wanted to do was have an element of freshness. So I think having 3 locations when you're together a long time, particularly in COVID, that can bring some, you know, flatness. And I think the freshness, sometimes you get more when there's a freshness there. So 3 different locations and yeah, behind closed door friendly before we go into that opening match against Japan.
Great. Thank you and good luck in Japan.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. As always, if there are any follow-up questions, don't hesitate to contact me. And thank you, Bev. Best of luck at the Olympic Games.
Thank you.